Hello and welcome to Writers on Writers, a virtual broadcast of writers talking to other writers about, wait for it, writing. I am your host, Danielle Bannister, and this month's broadcast theme is Later in Life Romance. And because of that, my guest today is L.B. Dunbar. Welcome, L.B. Dunbar.
Hi, everybody.
Now, before we start, I think that it's important that viewers know that you and I we know each other. We're not perfect strangers. I think we started writing about the same time, and we have some same writer friends. We've been to conferences together. I was your roommate for PennCon a few years ago, so we know each other. When did you start writing? When was that? Was it about the same time as me? I can't remember now.
My first book published in June of 2014.
So
I don't remember when you started either.
I was in 2011, but that's all right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, you were like during the golden age.
I wish. I didn't reap the rewards as others did, but I did see the golden era for myself. Yes.
Yes. Oh, nice.
Oh, now before we
and then
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then yes, I mean, we do have some mutual friends and PennCon, which feels like it was a lifetime ago, but oh well.
It really does. Yeah. Before we dive into the fun world that I think is later in life romance, would you tell us a little bit about you, maybe some of your, the later in life books that you've written, and maybe when you wanted to know that you wanted to be a writer, so that moment of, yeah, this is it, this is what I want to do.
Sure. So, what happened was that back in like 2010, I had this idea for a story. And it's one of those things where it sort of like haunted me. It was like I wrote it, and then like, a year went by, and then I tweaked it, and then another year went by, and then I kind of had all these like signs from the universe, and I was like, that's it. I'm just going to publish this book and see what happens. And so that was in 2014. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And eventually, I really wanted writing to be my full-time career. Mm-hmm. So in 2019, I left teaching, which had been my day job. I know, yay, very exciting. And this is my life. This is my job as well as my passion. So this year it will be my 7th year published, and I'm 100% indie published. I'm not hybrid. I'm not traditionally published at all. So when did I know? Yeah. When did I know that this is what I wanted to do? Probably later in life, because when I wrote that first book, I was I over 40 at that time? Almost. Yes, I was over 40. And I just feel like my whole writing journey has happened as my midlife crisis journey has happened. And so it's been kind of a source of inspiration, I guess.
You know what? Writing is cheaper than therapy.
Yeah, true.
When you're thinking about the genre of later in life romance, what does that mean for you? Is there a certain age where you go, this is it, this is where my later in life romance starts? And then sort of a follow-up to that, why do you think it's important to write these types of stories?
Well, first off, it's interesting because later in life romance is technically still not a category on Amazon. Shame on them.
Exactly.
I know. But it is officially in the, I think you say it, the BISAC, which is like the library coding. But when I first started publishing the over 40 romance, that's what I called it, was over 40 romance, because I didn't know what else to call it. And that was really only in 2017. And I think of later in life as literally over 40. But I think the qualification later in life starts at 35 because again, in the library coding, I think roughly like 24 to 35 is a new adult, technically. And so anything over 35, you're ancient and you're now considered later in life, I guess. Why did I find this to be such an important genre? Well, I have a two-part answer. Part one is my children were reaching the age of new adult. And to me, it just felt a little creepy to be writing things that they might, hopefully not, but might be doing. I just wasn't very comfortable anymore with that age group. And I also felt like there weren't very many stories for people that were over 40. If you ask people who writes romance with older characters, the only person they answer is Kristen Ashley, which is fine. This is great. I mean, I love her. The Will, amazing. But I just was like, come on, there has to be more than that. So I'm not sure if we'll get to this in the questions, but writing aftercare was actually kind of a fluke. It was this, I was actually going to be done writing. I was going to quit.
Really?
And I had started writing aftercare in my newsletter. And my readers were like, no, this needs to be a book. And I was like, I mean, it was sort of snowballing. I was like, you're right. I mean, I have the story I want to tell. And if it doesn't take off, I'm going to be done. I'm going to publish the story of these older people having sex, which maybe nobody wants to read. And and that's going to be it. And then I published, and it's been my most successful book ever. And it just, everything changed for me after that.
Right there.
Aftercare. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Tommy
I mean, I
Kerrigan.
think I agree with you there. I mean, I started writing and getting more and more books at about 40 is when I started producing more and more work.
Mhm.
And you're right, there wasn't a lot available for heroines in my age group.
Right.
And I was newly single, just gone through a divorce, and I was like, wait, is that it? Is there no romance left for people
Right.
over 40? Is that it? Are we done? And so I was unsatisfied with that. So I started writing stories specifically for me because there wasn't anything. So yeah, I think you're right. I think that these types of stories need to be told, and it needs to be a category Amazon.
Definitely. And a lot of my readers are my own age too. And so I think that as much as it's great to live in that fantasy of like being 24 and falling newly in love, there's so many people that through life circumstances, divorce or death, or even I'm amazed how many women I've met who in their 40s still have not found that person. So it's not a second chance. It's like they've never had the first chance.
Yeah.
And so I work off of that as we get older, we have totally different life experiences that I think are viable. And like you just said, like, God, I hope it's not over. I hope at 40 it's not over. So I'd like to fantasize that it's not, I guess.
I would concur with you. Now you've written a few books within this genre. Do readers seem to respond well to this genre? Do they gravitate to this more than other genres, or is it pretty an even mix for you? Because you have a pretty big spread of genres. Is there a genre that readers tend to gravitate toward?
For me now, the only thing I write is over 40. And so I feel, I would hope, I guess, that that's becoming what I'm known for. So out of the 30 books that I've written and published, the last, the last like 12, 13 have all been over 40. And I'm pretty open about the fact that that's all I'm going to write. I'm not going to be going back to new adult. I've heard that new adult's going to make a comeback, yay for the young folks. But I won't be writing that. I'll still be writing for the people over 40. When I first started writing, I think I didn't know, I was just writing what I wanted to write. So I didn't know where I fit. I was writing rock stars and paranormal, and I had sweet stuff. I had really gritty stuff. I was all over the place, which is great, I think, as an author, because it shows you're diverse. But eventually, if you want to have a brand, you have to pick something and stick with it. And so for me,
it helps you settle with where you feel the most comfortable. Like, what genre do you feel, this is it, this is where I want to be? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And for me, that's exactly it. I mean, I feel like later in life is the category I'm most comfortable writing, so that's where I'll stay.
So here comes the question that I'm sure that viewers want to know the most. In your later in life romance, sex or no sex?
Oh, well, it's funny because the first book I wrote that was later in life was called The Sex Education of M.E. And it was sort of just an experiment. It was like I wrote about this woman who was over 40. Her husband had died. It'd been a year and she wanted to date. And I had some beta readers that read it who were young. And I have a scene where the couple has sex in a minivan. And the younger beta readers were like, nobody's going to buy that. And then the older ones were like starting to share like all their secrets with me. So I say yes to the sex. And I definitely have it in all of my books. There's no closed door. There's also no age gap, though. I like to clarify that both the hero and the heroine are over 40 years old. There's not, like I said, there's no age gap or anything like that. And yes, they're having sex in like the minivan or, the
because
bathroom,
people do have sex after 40.
Kids.
It happens.
Yes, they do. They do. I know.
We need to normalize
young
that.
People don't want to think that, but it's true.
Oh, no. You recently became a full-time writer, as you said. That's a pretty big decision to make, especially from going from a position that, is an all-time consuming sort of, my ex was a teacher, so I know how much work teachers put into their life. How hard of a decision was it for you to put that all aside and say, you know what, I'm going for it? And did you give yourself like a time frame? It's like, I'm giving myself 5 years, or did you just jump in? What was that process like for you?
Well, it's funny you mentioned time frame, because initially the time frame was I wasn't going to leave my job until my youngest graduated from college, which at the time when I made that decision was 7 years out. And then I started having a lot of issues in the school district where I taught. So the decision became easier to move my timeline up. And then there was a whole year where I warned my husband, this is what I'm doing. Like, I devoted 20 years of my life to being mother to 4. And also to working, and this is what I really wanted to do. So he was the one that needed the prep work, that in a year's time I'd be leaving my job. And I did it a twofold. One was because I was in a position where I was teaching, things were really bad, and rather than look for another teaching job, I already had a job. I already had been working 2 jobs technically for 5 years, writing at night and weekends, and then teaching every day. So I was like, this is me time. This is my midlife crisis, and I'm going to give this a go. So it wasn't, there was a big thought process behind it, but it was not a difficult decision to make. The more difficult part became you suddenly have all this free time, quote unquote, if you leave your day job to write, and then you don't get anything done. Like, you're much more structured when you have the day job instead. So
that was going to be my next question, was like, have you fallen into a rhythm yet now that you've been at it for a while? Do you have a rhythm, or is it still chaos? Because I wonder that myself. Would it be chaos?
Yeah, it's still chaos. It depends on what I'm writing, though, I've noticed, because sometimes it feels like I can never get writing done. And then other times I will just be so consumed. It's literally the only thing that I will do. So I don't, it doesn't mean one book is better than another. It's just that sometimes it just really takes over and other times everything else seems to get in the way. So,
Right.
yeah.
Now, I know you said that you're only going to be writing later in life romance, but that's not to say that you don't have other titles out there. So that if there are viewers out there who maybe later in life just isn't their cup of tea right now, you write in a lot of other genres. So you have a lot of material out there. I personally loved Hades and Redemption Island of yours, which were not in the later in life realm.
Right.
What are some of the other genres that you write in, just so that people know what else you've got available?
Right. Well, I wrote the legendary rock stars. So that's obviously rock star and new adult. And then as you just mentioned, Hades, the modern descendants is a take on Greek mythology. And that was like my background love of paranormal romance. Although it's not really paranormal, it's more a little more like magical,
Yeah.
I guess. And then Redemption Island is what I like to say is like my favorite book that no one reads. That series was well, the duet is super gritty and dark and just so
And
different
sexy.
from everything else. Yeah, yeah, very sexy. And I love those stories so much. They're like the ones that every time people say like, oh, you know, what's your favorite book? It comes to mind, but then I always clarify. It's like, it's so different that people don't pick it up. But if you like dark and you like sexy,
I liked it. I like dark.
yeah, I mean, I love those stories. So, and then my very first series, which was called the Sensations Collection, I spent all of 2020 rewriting. And they have a whole new look, and they actually, the characters were aged. So initially they were new adult, and in rewriting their stories, I made them all 35 and older. And it's now
Nice.
called the Heart Collection.
I did read that series when it was the original series. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just to say, I just wanted to have another series, I guess, that sort of fit that over 40 genre. And they were stories that, well, you know, like your very first book is like not your best.
Oh, I do know.
Unless you're,
yes,
you know,
it's, yeah.
unless you're, I don't
It's
know.
a good effort is what it is. It's a good effort.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Now, one of the reasons that I started to do this broadcast is because I really love talking about writing process. I love to hear how other writers come up with their ideas or what their process is. Like for you, what is your process like from like the spark of an idea through the published? Is it the same path that you take, or does it vary book to book as to sort of how you go about things? Are you always like it needs to have 4 drafts, it needs to go to, do you have a process, or is it all over the place?
I mean, I definitely don't have a process where it's like it has to have 4 drafts. And I'm guilty of writing like a portion of the book and then going back and editing while I'm still writing, which everybody always says, like, don't do that, just get the whole and edit. But I guess I'm kind of OCD in that way that I can't let it go. I have to go back and fix as I'm writing. I'm super linear, so I only write from the beginning to the end. I do not skip scenes and then try to cut and paste them together. Even if I know what's going to happen 6 chapters away, I'm writing them all in order. So as far as like coming up with an idea and then actually writing it, unfortunately sometimes the spark is there but the time isn't. So I take copious notes on what I think I'm going to write in the future, and then have to work on the books that are most most like relevant to be done, I guess you could say. I write in a couple of other authors' worlds, and because those have tight deadlines, I'm kind of held to their timelines. So sometimes what I want to write next has to be put on the back burner until those are finished.
Yeah.
So
are you a pantser or are you an outliner?
I like to say I'm a pantser, but I'm really not. I really do, when an idea comes to me, I do what I call a very rough outline. So I sort of know beginning, middle, and end, and I know a lot about the characters when I start. And then I kind of let the story go the way that it wants to. Sometimes it's going the direction I don't want it to go, but I'm not one of those people that does a very formal outline. I should. I'm starting to think it would probably help if I did, but
I have
right
an
now I'm not.
outline, like sort of a template that I have, but I just I have it beside me so that I know, okay, this is the type of beat that needs to happen next. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'll go, okay, that's the beat. The catalyst is happening now. Okay, what do I want that to be? And so I'll pants to that, but I'm sort of referring to sort of what the next beat is, because I have a tendency to meander and then get way off track, and then subsequent drafts, I'm spending so much time trying to get back on track that sort of following that has helped me, sort of stay on track so that the cleanups are a little bit easier. So I'm sort of like, I'm halfway in between. It's there, but I'm not writing it before. I'm not doing the outline beforehand. It's sort of in tandem.
Yeah. I kind of feel that way too. I might start out with like a partial outline, and then once I start writing, I get like a better sense of where I'm going next. So then I might outline a little bit more, just so that I don't get too far off course. So.
And then I have to ask this of every guest, what are your favorite parts of writing and your least favorite parts of writing?
Well, it used to be that editing was my least favorite part. I just, because that's the point where you're like stressing over a stupid sentence for like 15 minutes and you're like, oh my God, what difference does it make? But now I kind of like the editing process, because it is that time to go back and either add more emotion, or fix that sentence that just wasn't right in the first place. So I still love, the writing is still my favorite part of the whole process. And I guess I would say that maybe the editing still is a little bit painful, but it's not, I don't really have a part that I feel is like the worst part. The worst part is probably trying to market the book.
I was going to say, maybe the marketing. Maybe that's the worst.
So not anything related to like the writing part of it, but the business side of being a writer.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's such a time suck too, and it's and it's just the other side of a brain, right? It's not the creative part of the brain, it's the other half that. Yeah, I feel you.
Right.
I feel you. I am right there with you. Would you mind humoring us with reading a blurb or something from one of your books, just so that people get a sense of what your work is like? Is that something that I can?
Sure.
Yay!
Sure. So I'm going to read the blurb from Silver Brewer. And this is the first book in a 4-book series. It's 4 brothers. There's actually 5 kids in the family, but the Silver Foxes of Blue Ridge are the boys in the family. And the blurb is, Albert Pearson needs his land. Name your price, Mr. Harrington. She has her reasons, and this muscular mountain of masculinity isn't going to get her way. However, her heart has a different plan after she accepts his crazy conditions. 3 nights up on the ridge. George Harrington is a quiet giant of a man. No sale, Cricket. He's a war hero, a widower, and COO for the family brewing company. But his life lacks spontaneity. Then she arrives, chirping away at him, roaming his body with those sky blue eyes and negotiating for something he won't put a price on. Too bad his heart is immediately sold. With the challenge accepted, the Silver Fox can no longer deny his desires for something a little different. Welcome to Blue Ridge, where sexy silver foxes meet their match of feisty vixens.
Nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Oh, so before we go, where do people go if they want to find out more about your books, about you? Where would you direct them to go?
Well, I think if you want a whole list of my catalog, the best is probably my website, which is www.lbdunbar.com. But also, all of my books are available on Amazon. So if that's easiest, just going to my author page in Amazon. I am primarily in Kindle Unlimited. I have some of my older books that are available wide, but I would say 99% of my books are in Kindle Unlimited. So either my website or Amazon is the best place to find more about me that way.
Is there anything else that you want to let people know before we wrap up? I want to give this opportunity.
I feel like if you want to know more about me and my wackiness, you can either join my reader group, which is called Loving L.B on Facebook, or follow me on Instagram. That's the extent of my social media. I am not on TikTok, so that's a lost cause for me. No,
my daughter.
I don't talk. Sorry.
My daughter keeps trying to convince me to. I'm like, yeah, I think that's not really my age bracket. I think that ship has sailed. Well, that does it for us. Tune in next month where our theme will be a topic that we touched upon here, full-time authorship, with guest Marianne Morea. This has been Danielle Bannister with guest L.B. Dunbar for Writers on Writers. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.